Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 714. Today we're going to talk about After the Empire. This is coming out from Gray Fox Games. And it's designed by Evan Halbert and Ryan Malk. I think I pronounced their names right, hopefully I did. And this is their first game that they've ever designed. So what After the Empire is a 2 to 4 player worker placement castle defense / siege game. But that's not really doing it a lot of justice, even as I tell you what that is. But that is what it is. It's a worker placement game. Each player is going to have their own kind of castle with farms around it, a little bit of an economy stuff going on in here. Now, I said 2 to 4 player. They are working on a solitaire version of the game that I've not played, but that is going to be an option. I believe it's going to be a downloadable PDF or something, so that should be free after this. So it might be out at the time that you see this video, but I'm not sure. So check the Board Game Geek page for that stuff. But let's jump down to the table. I'll give you a quick overview of how to play the game and some of the different phases and all that kind of fun stuff. And then we'll come back here and I'll tell you what I think. Okay, so there's a couple of different sort of main components of the game. Here is the main board. You can see there's lots of little action spaces and a round tracker and a gold tracker along the bottom here, places to buy cards there and there. And then there's kind of a siege sort of invader track at the top. So this is where players will be spending a lot of time kind of taking worker placement actions, getting resources, getting new soldiers and mercenaries, building cards, all that kind of fun stuff. And then down here we'll see a particular player's player board. So they have kind of a countryside or a landscape with a wooden castle. Now there's a few different board types for the different player colors set in kind of different settings, but there's no difference really between them, just this kind of different art for you to enjoy. And you can see the player color here. Now you will start with some food. So there's 4 food, 3 wood, 2 stone, and the iron here. So you have kind of your granary, your stockpile for your resources, and then an infirmary, because you have here little soldier cubes, these red cubes, and as they take wounds they'll go to here, but then you can take an action here to heal a certain number of soldiers. And you have these really cool chunky castle pieces here that have little cubes in them as well. So you can see obviously the wood cubes go in the wood wall in that case, and these are kind of like hit points. So as these things take damage from being sieged, you'll start to remove cubes and then finally remove the piece altogether. Now you always have to have one gate here, so you can see here that it's a gate because the gates always have less hit points, less cubes in them. And you can see on the other side here there's a little gate doorway there, and you choose and put your gate on whatever side you want. It doesn't really matter, it's kind of just a random setup thing, but you put it on one side and that's the side that your gate will be on. Now you also have farms on each of the north, south, east, and west of these, and these will gonna generate food at the end of every turn. You can upgrade these to generate more food as well. You start with 3 workers here in your player color, but you'll get more over the course of the game. Everybody starts with 2 cards. One is a basic building card. Everybody starts with these barracks here. You can see this has kind of a tap thing, so on one of your worker placement turns you can tap this and do what it is, and then you will untap at the end of the round, and then you will randomly or choose, however you really want to do it, these different characters. So this character here has the ranger. This is the initiative. This is just kind of the initial turn order we'll set up based on that, and so you can use this once a round to get some movement tokens and some defense tokens. And I'll show you another example here. The other character I gave here is a foreman, and when you place this one you actually start with an extra wood and stone, and then when you build buildings, which are other cards, then you have a little bit of a discount there. So those are the kind of the asymmetric abilities that you're going to have. So the game is really broadly 2 phases. One is the worker placement phase where you'll place these on the board, and then you'll have kind of the siege or combat phase where different armies and stuff will be attacking each player individually. So you all have to kind of deal with sort of an AI coming at you. You don't fight each other. The only place that you really fight each other is the worker placement. And there's some cleanup steps and stuff like that at the end of the round, but it's really 2 phases, worker placement and then combat. So let's talk about the worker placement side first. So there's various different areas here on the board, and we'll just zoom into a few of them. It's kind of your traditional worker placement thing. So this part should be pretty familiar to most folks. So you can see here, for example, if you go to the mine, you'll get 2 more iron, and these are these dark gray cubes there. And if you're playing a 3 and 4 player game, then this extra spot will be unlocked. But in a 2 player game, you can only go to that one spot and then that place is blocked. Here you have a wood mill. You can go get 5 wood, a quarry to get some stone. This particular spot here, the tax, you go and you get a choice. You either get 4 gold and a mercenary or 5 food. Now, the gold is your victory points in this game, but you don't want to be afraid to spend gold to get certain other soldiers and other goods if you really need to. The food you're going to need to actually feed and sort of quote-unquote pay your soldiers. But for example, if we go up here, you've got a buy and a sell spot here. So you can buy with gold some extra resources and stuff which you might need to build up your castle defenses or extra food to feed your troops. Or if you have a surplus of some of that, you can sell that to get extra gold. And again, gold is the victory points there. Finally, over here is kind of the mercenary camp. On this side, you can pay a certain amount of gold and get either soldiers, which kind of has like a little red tinge to it, and then the mercenaries are blue. So just to make sure it's clear here, the soldiers here you will kind of own forever. These you have to keep feeding food. The mercenaries are a little bit cheaper, but these are going to disappear each round, but you don't have to feed them, which is nice. And then up here is a building spot, so you can go up there and get a building. So here you can see the cost of the building in the upper left, so 4 wood and an iron. Here's the amount of gold or victory points you get at the end of the game. And then here's a special ability. So this will give you your own worker placement spot to get some movement tokens, which I'll talk about, and another secret objective. So here's another spot where you can go get a secret objective. You'll draw 2 and discard 1 to the bottom of the deck, and you get some defense tokens and some movement tokens. Now, secret objectives are just things like this that say, if you have the most buildings at the end of the game, you'll reveal this and you get 2 extra gold and or victory points. Finally, here's a spot to get refugees. And here you can see you pay the cost on the upper left, and then you get another card, and they'll have different abilities and bonuses and so on. Definitely don't neglect the cards. They're going to enhance your game that much more. Now, in addition to any cards you might have bought that might have a worker placement action on them, you've got these 3 actions here. Now, you can go to the granary twice on your turn. You get 3 sort of upgrade points for your farms. And what that means is you can level them up for a level 1 to a level 2. That'll cost you 1 upgrade point. Now, over the course of combat, these might get destroyed. So if a farm gets destroyed or knocked down, then you're going to put a fire token on it. And so this actually counts as a level 0. So it won't generate any food. Now, if you get attacked and it's on a level 2, it'll just go down to a level 1 and so on. So that's for an upgrade point, you could remove the fire token, and then another upgrade point, you could, upgrade the farm. And then you can also get shield tokens in a variety of ways. And what you do with these is you'll put these on a farm, and then if there's any invaders on that side of your castle, this won't degrade at all, but at the end of the round, this will go away. So you will lose that. Now here's a stockpile, which you can do a whole lot of upgrade actions and build actions, which I'll show you in just a second. But this last spot here is the infirmary here. So as your soldiers here get wounded, you can go to this action here and heal 4 of them, basically put them back into play. And so these will be deployed at different parts of your castle to help you with your defense. Now the stockpile is probably one of the most interesting parts of the game, and everybody will have a player right here, and you can see you can build different enhancements to your castle. So if you were to build another wooden wall, it will cost you 3 wood. So we're good on wooden walls right now, but let's say this was destroyed. We could spend here 3 wood, and then we can go get another wooden wall out of the supply, and then you will stock it back up with full hit points there. But if you wanted to build a stone wall, that will cost you 2 wood and 4 stone. But if you are replacing a wooden wall, you don't have to pay the wood cost. So if this was empty and you were going straight from nothing to a stone wall, you got to pay the full cost. But if you're just upgrading it, then you'll just pay the non-wood cost. You'll put this in here, and you see the stone walls are better, obviously, because they're going to come in with more hit points. So you'll put a bunch of stone cubes in there. Now it is worth noting that if you have something that gets just destroyed or starts to take damage, these cubes are going to go into your supply. You don't actually lose them forever. So these will be good for maybe doing repairs, because if you go to the stockpile here, you can start to repair. And any supplies you have in here, you'll put back into any empty hit point spots if you wish, to sort of beef those walls back up. That goes for stone or wood. Now you can also build here turrets. So there's 2 kinds of turrets, of course. You have your wood turrets and you have your stone turrets. And again, if you're upgrading a wood turret to a stone turret, you do not have to pay the wood cost. So a fresh stone turret costs 3 wood, 4 stone, and an iron. But if you already had a wood one, you're upgrading just the 4 stone and iron. And these, of course, come in with hit points as well. Now, these will never get destroyed. So a wood one, if it takes damage, so it takes 2 damage, basically 1 damage to pull the cube out, the last damage to destroy it, will get destroyed. These, however, won't get destroyed. They will just get a little fire token there. So one of the things you can do when you take your stockpile action here is actually repair that, and that will cost you 2 stone. So it can basically cost you 2 stone to remove that, and then if you want to fix it up even more, those will cost you more stone to refill up the little hit point bay in there. And you can do, I should be clear, all of these constructions on just one stockpile action. Just as much as you can pay for, you can do on that action there. Now it is possible to get your castle sacked, and you might have some damage and stuff on some of the cards that you've bought. So these cards, for example, if a refugee gets damage on it, you'll put a little token on it here, and so it will cover this up. Now you still get to use this card, but it's not going to be worth those extra points at the end of the game. So it's not going to set your engine back, but it will cost you at the end of the game if you don't take and spend some resources here to sort of undamage those extra buildings and refugees. So that's all the worker placement stuff you can do. So after that, we're going to move into combat. So at the top of the screen here, you can see the kind of combat row. Now to start off, you're going to flip one card off this deck on the left here, and you're going to see who's coming and where they're coming from, and you're going to have one card on the siege deck, and that's going to be face down. That's going to happen every round. But then in later rounds, you're going to start to add more face down cards from the invader deck here. So in the second round, you have a face up one, and then one face down, and then in the third round, you have another face down, and then so on until you just cap out, basically adding one each round. Now if you play like on the hard mode, you'll start this sort of process a little bit further along. So the start of the game, the very first round, you have a face up and a face down. But let's make it somewhat simple for our example here. We'll take these back off like so. And so you're going to see here who's coming and doing what. So you know people are going to be attacking you from this side. So relative to how you're sitting around this board here, you're going to look at this and say, oh, okay, so they're going to be attacking me from the side here with the red line. See, there's like little arrows too coming. So if we look down back at our board, which is down here, right, we're sitting under this, we'll look at this and we'll say, okay, they're coming from this side with the red line. So these are, we know there's attackers coming from this side. Now if we were sitting like over there, and then we would look at this, well, this would be a relatively different, and actually would be like this. So just you look at it relative to how the card's positioned and laid out there, and they're going to be attacking you from this side no matter where you're at. So the one thing to note here is if we look at this, you've got a gold amount here. So if you're at 4 gold or more, you're going to get 3 attackers coming at you. But if you have 22 gold or more, you're going to have 8, because they're going to want your riches. They're coming to kind of plunder or sack your castle. Now it's worth noting that as the rounds progress, this little siege marker is going to move up. So even if you have less gold on your track here than the siege marker, you're still going to count as having this much gold wherever the siege marker is at. So you can't sort of play a big turtle game and you know, stay underneath like where there's no threat. This is just going to keep going up. So you're going to have to deal with some threat, you know, sooner than later as that moves up. So before we reveal any more of the invader siege cards, players are going to get a chance to move their soldiers around. So I maybe put these guys up here on top of the walls. And while they're on the walls, these sort of turn into archers. And so you might have some more soldiers in here. We'll throw a couple of more in here just to be fun. Maybe we got a mercenary. So we know some are coming from this side, so maybe we'll throw 3 up here because we're pretty sure we're going to get attacked by 3 of them. So we'll leave those here, maybe put 3 up here, and then maybe 1 over here. Now this turret will also attack. These will do kind of an archery attack as well. So we're going to say, oh, we'll leave this a little bit shy over here because we've got a turret and stuff. We know stuff's coming here. And then, oh, there's 4 over there. I should put 1 there. So that you know, you kind of sort out how you want to do it. And then you're going to reveal the extra cards. Now it's worth noting that you want to kind of decide how to flip these cards so it stays consistent. And you want to, as you shuffle them, kind of mix them and twist them around. But you want to keep them so they're consistent. So let's look at the next card here. We'll see what this says here. So this says, oh, okay, these guys are going to come from our left-hand side. And let's say we've got more than 2 gold, so we're going to have 2 guys coming from that side. And then you have here the siege card, and we'll flip that over. And this is going to, again, work on this side. So what this does, these have a few different things here. So these, you're going to put out a siege token in one of 2 different ways. This one is an attack, but it could also be a ladder. So there's 4 siege tokens to put in the game, and there may not be anything. There may not actually happen to have anything. And so if you have a siege icon like this, an attack, these are going to start to do damage to your turrets, and it's going to tell you how much damage they do based on where the gold is. Again, if you have more gold, they're going to send more powerful siege equipment. So it's first going to attack your stone turrets, then your wooden turrets, and then your walls, starting with your weakest in each category. And it's just going to do the number of damage. So this would kill this with 1 damage, and if we did another damage, it would do another damage to the wall. And they won't attack your soldiers in that case. Now, if you get a ladder, this is going to help any troops that move in. So if I remember right from the example, we basically had 3 troops coming in from this side and 3 troops coming in from that side. Now, if this was a ladder, these would actually be able to move in here in the move step without actually having to clear the wall, damage the wall enough. So you got to watch that, because if you get any soldiers, even 1 soldier in here at the end of the round of combat, and you don't have anybody to deal with it, then you've been sacked and you can't win any bonus points for that round, and so on. So the first thing you're going to do is archery phase. So any guys up here are archers, and the game might throw archers at you as well. So maybe let's just pretend we had an archer there, these little green tokens. And so, before archery though, you are going to damage all of the farms where there is any invaders. So in this case, we'll damage both these farms, unless of course you were smart enough to put a shield token there, and then we'll just ignore that damage. And then the archery phase is going to happen simultaneously here. So we've got 1, 2 archers here. So we're going to do 1, 2 there. So this 3 is going to go down to 1 on that side. These stone turrets actually do 2 damage each. And so they're going to do damage to both angles there. The wooden turrets only do 1 damage, but they'll damage everything that they're attached to. So the north and the south, or west in this case. And then this is going to go both directions there. So we're going to get 1 damage off here from your mercenary, and then 2 more there. So we're going to say we'll take the archer out because they're more versatile, and then 2 more. So this will go down to 1 here. But that archer that was there is going to simultaneously attack back. And so we have to remove 1 of our troops there. If we had multiple, we could choose. You usually might as well remove the mercenary because they're going to go away anyway. And then when your regular troops die, they just go here to your infirmary over here. And then you're going to go into the move step. Now, in this case, there's a ladder, so this guy gets to move right in there when they move. So all of the enemies are going to move first, and then you have a chance to react here. So for this example, he's going to move in, so we definitely have to start moving our guys in. Now, it's worth noting this movement here, like during the combat rounds, is free. Everybody can move around. But before you actually reveal the cards, I showed you these movement tokens earlier, you can spend these after the reveal to kind of reformulate your guys, because if they really sort of stack up. So it's a good idea to get these movement tokens during the round, but you will lose these if you don't spend these. But once you get into combat after the archery phase and you go round after round, then you can start to move everybody during this movement phase. So if this guy jumped in here, then we can send our guys down, and then again, it's kind of a 1-for-1 combat. He will wound 1 of my guys and I'll kill 1 of his guys. Now if there's, let's say we had it like this here, and we got kind of caught with our pants down with these guys in these different spots here. These guys here are going to do damage to the walls. They won't damage the turrets, only the walls. So we've got 3 guys. We're going to do 1, 2, 3 damage. Right, so that's going to remove that. And remember, when you take damage from a wall or anything like that, it goes back into your supply. But this will be gone. So the next movement phase, these guys are going to move in. So we'll definitely need enough guys to pop back in there. And if you get sacked again, I'll explain how that's going to work now. But basically, you don't ever want to get sacked if you can help it, but it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. So the first thing if you get sacked is you're going to look at here the gold track. So let's say we had 9 gold. You're going to look at the red number attached to that, and this is a 5. So that's telling you how much gold you're going to go down to. You're going to go from the 9 to the 5. So you're going to lose some gold there. Any soldiers that you might have had still around on the walls and whatnot, then these are automatically all going to get wounded like so. You will get 2 free mercenaries to add to your supply. And then you also get, there's 4 of these sort of village workers here. For the next round only, you get an extra worker to add to your supply, and so on. Now, after everybody has gone, if you've not got sacked, you're going to take a look at whoever has the most gold left here on the track. And based on what round it is, you're going to get a little bonus marker, and these are just basically bonus victory points. If there's a tie, whoever has the most gold, everybody that's tied is just going to get one of these 1-point ones. And then you're going to get income, and you're going to get 1 gold for each standing structure. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4 gold here. And then you've got to pay food here for each of your work or your soldiers that you have remaining here, and even if they are wounded, you still have to pay the food for them. If you can't pay food, you've got to pay gold, which gain victory points. And then you reset the board. You'll clear off the cards here if there are any from these different building spots. These will slide down. You'll add new cards. You'll reset the siege tracker again, adding more and more of these face down ones as time progresses. The siege tracker here will start to move up. You move this up. You start to get extra workers here in the later rounds. And that's it. You play through 7 rounds. Whoever has the most gold at the end will be the winner. Okay, so that is After the Empire. We'll go through my 3 pillars of review. First is play count. I've only played this 2-player, hadn't had a chance to play it 3 or 4-player. Groups hasn't yet started to get back together with the game nights and everything, although soon, hopefully. So I can't really speak to it, but I do know that they're coming out with a solitaire variant, which I do want to try, because spoiler, I do really enjoy the game. But the game is, so I don't want to say this and come off wrong, because I really do like the game, but the game is sort of solitaire in a way, although we'll get to more of that later, but you shouldn't really have too much difference in the gameplay across the player count. And I think that's actually a good thing in this case, but we'll get to that, because the only interaction here is really the worker placement. So the combat, of course, the invaders and the siegers are just attacking each player individually. So if you screw up your management of the food and the soldiers or building the proper defenses, that's on you. That's not going to affect anybody else, although they will probably win versus you, for example. But it's not going to directly affect them. So I don't think that the player count scaling will be a problem, because again, the worker placement spots scale up based on the number of players. So in the 2-player games I've found, though, it's been very tight, and I thought, played out very well, because sometimes you really need to have that certain resource or the extra food, or you really want that building, because that's going to help your little engine that you've sort of got working on. And so there is some interaction in that case in the worker placement part of it, just like any other good worker placement game. So that is a thing that you can do. You can be sort of proactive in your worker placement and blocking and stuff, and say, like, what, this is actually really good for me and bad for Billy, because it's going to do that. Whereas if I go over here, yeah, I could kind of use that. So that is part of the game. So if you're familiar with Euro games and that's kind of your jam, I think that you're going to really like that part of the game there. But one thing I would say is I'm not sure I'd want to play with 4, because there can be, not AP, but I think there can be some decision making in terms of, like, when you start to get a lot of resources and you're trying to figure out what to build in your castle, you're like, gosh, should I build this a stone wall? Should I get some extra turrets? How do I want to spend this? Do I want to rebuild this thing, or just kind of leave it? Because I've got enough troops, so if they do come from that wall, the troops will take care of it, where I can shore up defenses on this side. So that sort of the build action is usually the one that you wait to do at the end, because it's on your board, because there's no reason to rush to do it, because you want to do the stuff that's out on the main board that you can be blocked from. So usually at the end of the round of the worker placement part, everybody's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. So there's a little bit there. So 4 people doing that, that might take long if you have a higher chance to have somebody that's AP prone in your group doing that. So I'm not sure I'd really care to play at 4-player, because like I said, the effective outcome of the game, the effective experience of the game isn't going to change that much from 2, 3, and 4, because everything scales so well, so it's going to play just fine. So my personal interest would be played at the 2 and 3-player count, and again, the solitaire count when it comes out. But the 4-player going to be like, I don't know, I'd rather just play something else probably, just because it's just all it's going to do, I think, is take more time with 4 players. But it does support that count, so that's cool too. And so if 3 other people really wanted to play it, then I'd totally play it, because spoiler again, I do enjoy the game. So let's talk about, usually my 3rd pillar of review is like, what is this game like? What could I compare it to? And let's forget the sort of superficial part of it, of the worker placement, and you get the cards and the abilities and all those sort of, not tropes, but those little hooks that, games recently have latched themselves onto. I've not really played a game quite like this, and it doesn't work out in practice like really any other game that I've played, because gosh, so the first thing, let's talk about the castle stuff and the sieging. So as you get sort of attacked, I've played this a couple of times now, and under the covers, it's almost like a little economic engine, but it doesn't show its cards. Like, you don't go, oh, I've figured out the math of this, and so now I've got this little thing. So because there is some hidden information that you have to kind of take a gamble with, because you don't really know exactly what angle those other folks are going to be attacking you from. But it's such a cool thing because it feels very crunchy, very Euro-y, very pragmatic, economical, and all that kind of fun stuff. But then because of those little wrinkles, it still feels like this fun, vibrant, holy crap, we're getting sacked from the side. Is like you get the sort of the sweating, so you get the chills of it, of like, oh no, they're coming from the left side. The scouts said they were coming from the west. It's, idiot, And so it has that sort of layer of stuff to it, which is just really, really cool. And it just handles that whole thing really smartly with how the economies of all those kind of different sort of strategies for protecting your little kingdom work. Because you're not just really having the castle. You've got the food economy to, feed the troops. And the troops could be like your strategy, like you're going to go heavy on troops, where somebody else might go heavy on fortifications, getting to that stone walls, the stone turrets, which are more effective, and all that kind of stuff. And so you also have the farm economy as well. So you're trying to, spend some time to defend those and upgrade the farms, because that's going to generate more food. So that's going to, tailor into the soldier strategy. Or you might just get a lot of gold and spend all that gold on mercenaries and just the expendable resources. So that sort of whole kind of mathy economic side is really sort of straightforward and intuitive, and then it makes sort of the theme and everything just really come alive. And so that's just such a cool experience. And it's hard to just say that it does that and then have you go, okay, cool, got it, because having played this a couple of times and then seeing, what the other players have done and what I've done, and just kind of the natural sort of like narrative of the game and sort of the ebb and flow of like, holy crap, like the last game I played of it, my buddy had like a really fortified castle, and I'm like, okay, and I got sacked in the previous round, and I was like, oh man, I think there might be like a runaway leader problem here. But because I had spent more on the troops and everything, I still had a lot of extra food and everything. So they actually lost a ton of gold because they couldn't feed their troops. And so I'm like, oh my God, I'm winning now. And so, I was like, oh, that's really neat, because you spent so much effort. And that's such a cool like narrative beat in the story of the game, where it's like they spent too much time on their castle. They have this cool, awesome, shiny castle, but all the people they've forgotten about, in a sense. And so that's a neat, that's just a really cool aspect of the game, and it really just kind of lends into blending the theme and the mechanics and everything. And the other things that it does that I like is that the gold is, the victory points, and you really want to kind of play around with that. And there's a real cat and mouse game with that, because if you spend extra gold, you're losing victory points, but then you become less of a threat to the AI that's going to come after you, because you're not as rich. They're not trying to take you down. They're trying to take out the big hitter. And some of the siege cards will have a little bonus that targets the leader. So whoever's in the lead, or whoever, if there's tied, they happen to be in the lead, it'll throw some extra troops at them to kind of keep them. And that's another thing that will kind of prevent the runaway leader thing as well. So that's pretty cool. But then you kind of want to spend to a certain point, because you do get those extra little banners at the end of each of the combats. So if you're doing pretty good and you don't get sacked, and so it's kind of hitting that perfect like chord of balance between economy and everything and the amount of gold that you spent, but still kind of sort of maybe outspending everybody else. You get a little bit of a banner token there. It's a little bonus because you threaded that needle perfectly. And there's a risk reward thing, almost like a push your luck aspect to it. That's so like, doesn't feel like a push your luck. It just feels like you were being smart when you get that banner, because you're like, oh, I didn't get sacked. I did well, and I got most gold at the end of the combat, and so I got a little bit of reward for that, because it's kind of like a morale boost thing. It's really cool. It's a really smart little thing there. And then again, you generate all the gold and the food and stuff, and that kind of tailors back into your economy. And the last bit I want to talk about is the cards. And you don't want to sleep on the cards. I mentioned that in the walkthrough, because that's just going to beef up your abilities really during the worker placement stuff. Give you discounts, give you like troops, like little combat bonuses and stuff like that. I mean, there's just all kinds of things. You get your own little worker placement spots that you can do, and they're going to give you points at the end of the game. And I really like how when you get sacked, you've got to sort of burn down a building or torch a refugee card, but you don't lose the ability, you just lose the bonus that you get from it too. And that's a cool, that's just a nice, smart aspect, a very simple thing, but it keeps the theme of it. So not only have they sacked your castle, they've started to sort of pillage your countryside. You know, you've lost buildings and refugees and the villagers and stuff, but it's not hurting your engine. Those people are still there. It's just going to cost you points at the end of the game. It's not going to keep you from playing the game and enjoying your process. Even if you get your butt kicked, you're still going to have fun all the way through it. So that's kind of the gist of it. Like, it still has that brutalityness to it. Is that a word? Brutalityness? It still has the brutality and the thematic aspects of it and that sort of Ameritrash undercurrent vibe, but it's smart about how it does it. And so it doesn't ruin your gameplay. So these brutal things that you're going to see and happen to you, you're going to like, oh, this is terrible, I'm never going to win. But no, it doesn't really jack your engine up or screw your whole game fun up. And so that's a really cool achievement. It's a rare thing to see in games. So I definitely recommend this game highly, and I think it's going to work at every player count. Like I said, I haven't played it other than 2-player, but just the way that the game's sort of built and architected, I think is susceptible to that. And I'm curious about the solitaire game, because like I said, I'm sure it just kind of blocks out worker placement spaces and everything like that. So as long as it's not like a high score, you know, try to beat your high score thing, then I will be into it. I hate that kind of thing in most solitaire games. But if it's like, you know, it has the AI scoring points or something during the course of the game and you're trying to beat it, then that should be cool. Anyway, yeah, I definitely recommend it. I think this is going to be up a lot of people's alleys. And it's definitely right in that medium, just inching to heavy. It's not near heavy, but it's just on the heavy side of medium. So there's a little bit of rules crunching in there. I explained most of the rules, but once you get into the flow of it, it's super buttery and it flows really good, and the theme really shines up through it. So yeah, I can't recommend this one enough. Thanks.